Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us today for the Minister's Talk with Finance Minister Robinson. We'll get started in just a few minutes here. She's running a couple minutes late. Apparently she's in question period, and we'll run straight out of there and join us shortly. So just hang tight, grab your coffee, water, early lunch, whatever you got, and we'll be with you just real shortly here, so hang tight. While we're waiting for the minister to join us, and hopefully it'll be shortly, if you could please, if you have any questions for the minister, you see the Q&A button on the bottom of the screen there. Please enter your questions in there and we'll endeavor to get them answered. We have a few pre-submitted ones, a few from the chamber, and I'm sure some will come out of her presentation. But if you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A section down there at the bottom. Enter them there. If there's any other things that come up, the chat function is open and working. I see some of you chatted already, so nice to hear from you. Let me know you're here. And this is great. So I see Bill is here. Good to see you, Bill. Or good to see you're here. So Minister Robinson should be with us shortly. Again, she's just wrapping up in question period, apparently, so she'd be here soon. And chat me your questions, please, and we can get them answered for you.
Podium microphone, 1, 2, 3.
Thanks for the question, Paulie. It's not good, but might get better this afternoon. Appreciate that. Heidi, good to see you're here. Hope you're doing well and everything's you're healthy. Julie, welcome. Fred, good to see you. So just while we're waiting for the minister, I just want to reiterate to everybody these tough times we're in right now with the pandemic and all the restrictions that have been put upon us. It's important, more important now than ever. Support your local businesses, especially the small businesses and the restaurants. We had the Dine Out series that was going on, which we just concluded very successfully, our Taste of the Tri-Cities. Well, let's continue that. Make sure you're going out there and supporting the local restaurants. If you get on the patio on sunny days like today, and if you're not feeling up to that, then please get takeout. Take out food, take it home, sit down with your family, enjoy. Support these local businesses so we can get through this and come out the other side even better. And when you're doing your shopping, other shopping, make sure you're thinking about the small little businesses that are out there, the smaller ones, not necessarily the big box stores where you can go to and support them. Even buy gift cards if you're thinking about gifts. Let's support local. Let's try local anytime you can while we're going through all this. So there's my speech for now. I'm just waiting for the minister to show up anytime. Zoe Royer, good to see you too. And again, if you've got questions, please enter them in the Q&A there. We got, so you've got a couple in there now, a couple good ones. That'll be interesting to see how they get answered. And I think they're valid questions. So if you got any questions, put them in the Q&A. It'll be open the whole time. And I'll get a plug in here for Pasta Polo. Fred just posted there in the chat, if you can see it, 30% discount for take and bake at Pasta Polo, right across the road from our office. So make sure you get over there and support a great local business and a great business leader in our community, Mr. Fred Sufi, and get out to all of them. And as Bill says, reminder, give a good tip to the restaurant staff. Bill's a good tipper, and I know we all are. Make sure you tip them. They still need the tips to make it through this pandemic, because they're working hard too and putting their health on the line, serving us. So make sure you tip well and you dine out. Pasta Polo's getting some love there, which is great. Question period just ended, so I'm envisioning Minister Robinson running down the hallways of the legislature to get here. So we'll have her here in just a second. Ryan, if you could post it in the Q&A, because I don't know if I have yours, but if you get it to me, that would be great on the Q&A. That would be great. Yes, we are lucky it's a short commute. I'm not going to make any short jokes either. I'm going to refrain. At least not till she comes here, then I can make the short jokes.
Mike, I did hear the short jokes. I want you to know that. I heard you.
I didn't make any short jokes. I refrained. I was very, very refrained and very restrained in my comments. I would not do that without you there to comment back.
I'll kick you in the shins next time I see you, but I'll do it from a safe distance. I wanted to thank you for having me, and also I apologize for late QP. It went a little longer than we expected. It was certainly lively in there.
No worries. Let me get started right away. Then I've got a couple opening comments here. I've been plugging supporting local and try local this whole time. As I know you do, you get up and support the local restaurants, but let's get started. So thanks for joining us. I respectfully acknowledge that we're gathering today on the unceded territories of the Coquitlam First Nations, Katzie First Nations, Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. The Chamber's role throughout the pandemic has been to maintain a strong business community. Not only have we internally adapted our own processes, we have continued to meet the external needs of our members by providing timely and accurate government updates, hosting a variety of webinars with industry experts and government officials to support your shift in business. Today, we continue to be a resource hub for new information and training, and we work very hard to advocate on your behalf with all levels of government. I can assure you, government's getting a little tired of hearing from us on some of these things, but we do it very, very passionately on your behalf. So we can get through this pandemic and be better on the other side coming out. That's what the Chamber's been doing for you through this whole time. We do have a bunch of upcoming events, which I'll quickly touch on. We got a digital marketing workshop with Ballistic Arts. So if you're pivoting online on Tuesday, there's a free digital marketing workshop with Ted from Ballistic Arts. Wednesday, we have Mayor Richard Stewart in for Coffee Talk at 8 a.m. online, Zoom. So make sure you tune in for that if you got questions what's going on in Coquitlam. And new member mixer on May the 5th. And we have our golf tournament on July 15th, which we are hoping will still be allowed to happen. We did it last year during the pandemic, and we did it under all the rules, and we're pretty confident we can do that again. So look for that. Now let's get right to our guest speaker. So we have the Honorable Selena Robinson, Minister of Finance, with us here today to provide our members and the business community with a recap of the 2021 budget, an updated state of BC's economy. We are proud to bring you this opportunity to connect directly with Minister Robinson and to engage in deeper conversation on how the provincial budget will impact your business. We'll be taking questions from the audience, so please post your questions in the Q&A, as I stated there. If you're on Facebook Live, put them in there. Staff will chat them over to me. So if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and post your questions on Facebook, and staff will get them to me, and I'll try to get them to the minister. Just a quick background on Minister Robinson. Was first elected MLA for Coquitlam-Mayardville in 2013. Previously served as the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, where she led record housing investments through the 10-year Homes for BC plan to build housing of all types in communities throughout the province. She managed major capital investments in public transit through her work in the Mayor's Council and TransLink, and worked tirelessly to support local governments through the pandemic. So without any further ado, please welcome the Honorable Selena Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking from the territory of the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nation. And I do know that a number of my colleagues are joining us from the Tri-Cities. I believe Finn Donnelly is able to join us for a bit, as well as Rick Glumac. Mike Farnworth sends his regrets. He's been double booked, so he's had to attend to some other business. And I'm speaking to you today from Victoria. But I have to tell you, it's so comforting to hear Mike's voice, a voice from home, because I call Coquitlam home, as many of you do as well. And I just want to, I will give a shout out to Mike. He's been an incredible advocate for businesses in the Tri-Cities. I know he doesn't like when I do this, but I want you to know that he does regularly reach out to me, sometimes to advocate, but sometimes just to check in to say, just thought you might like to know this is what's going on with business in our community. And it's really helpful to have that. So I do want to give him a shout out for his hard work on your behalf. We have faced incredible challenges this last year, all of us in some way, shape, or form. Our lives have been turned upside down, and it's touched us in many different ways. But I do want you to know that there is hope. There is hope on the horizon, including and especially on the vaccination rollout. It is a key component that we need to continue rolling out. And there are some positive signs of recovery just beginning here in our province. And so this budget is based on the fact that we still are in a pandemic. We need to continue to support people. We need to continue to support businesses and support communities, and simultaneously start preparing for recovery. So that is what you see in this budget. We're investing in healthcare. We're strengthening the services that we all depend on. And we're building a bridge to recovery and for the better days ahead. Because the pandemic, it will end. And when it does, BC will be ready for the opportunities that come with recovery. And it's a powerful testament, I have to say, for the incredible resilience that we have seen here among British Columbians. We've seen it in the business community, we've seen it in communities, and I know that we're going to be able to capitalize on that going forward. So I just want to, before I move on to the budget details, I thought it would be helpful to review some of the broader economic picture. This slide shows private sector growth forecasts for Canada and the provinces. All provinces saw significant impacts last year because of the pandemic. You'll see that on the chart on the left. And a recovery is expected for this year. In recent weeks, private sector forecasters have updated their near-term economic growth projections for BC to show a stronger recovery. This projection shows that our recovery is expected to be better than the national average. And again, I want to point out that this really does speak to the resiliency of our economy, that despite of the challenges that we experienced last year, our strengths remain. We have an abundance of natural resources, gateway to Asia, and we have a highly skilled workforce. So this budget focuses on our response and recovery from the effects of COVID-19. We took very deliberate and thoughtful approach to putting together this budget to make sure that government continues, first and foremost, to protect the health and safety of British Columbians. We also know that we need to continue supporting people and businesses as we continue to manage the effects of the pandemic, and that we do the important work of preparing for a post-pandemic recovery. So in addition to new permanent investments of $8.7 billion over the fiscal plan, we've also included significant pandemic and recovery contingencies. That's essential to keeping us as a government nimble and also making sure that we can continue to respond to the needs of people, and businesses, and of communities. We also want to ensure that we can continue to deliver COVID-19 response and recovery measures to help us manage the ongoing uncertainties and risks with the pandemic. Now, the other thing about this budget is we're making significant new capital commitments in the health, transportation, and education sectors. Things like hospitals and schools and post-secondary facilities and transit and roads. All of this around the province, really helps us through the recovery. And I want to say it's $26.4 billion over the fiscal plan period, and that's a significant investment in our capital plan. And I know that often finance ministers have a very narrow view of business when presenting to boards of trade. That's typically what they talk on. But if we don't have a healthy population, if people of this province aren't healthy, we can't have a healthy economy. And I know that we all care about each other. We've certainly seen that through this pandemic, just how much British Columbians care about each other. And so it's really important that we do have the services that are there for people when they need it. So last year, for sure has highlighted the importance of strong health and mental health services. We've all seen the photos of, the nurses and the care aides caring for those that are vulnerable and needing support. But we need to make sure that we have significant health and mental health funding for people. And as more and more people get vaccinated, we will see the light. We do see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're not there yet. So we need to remember that we have to keep people safe. It is our top priority. It's the only way through to recovery. So Budget 2021 provides more than $4 billion in funding for health and mental health to continue to protect people from COVID-19 and to expand the services that we all rely on. It includes support for, of course, the largest mass vaccination program ever in our history. And on top of that, funding to reduce wait time for surgeries and give patients faster access to the healthcare they need. And of course, support for seniors. They've had an especially frightening and difficult year and incredibly lonely, and making improvements to that system is absolutely critical. You also see in this budget the largest investment in mental health services in our history. It builds out a network of mental health supports for youth through schools, the Foundry Centers, and integrated child and youth supports in more than 15 school districts. We're improving the access and quality of mental health services throughout our province, making sure that Indigenous people have access that is culturally sensitive, and helping more people get on the path to recovery with new substance use treatment and recovery beds. This budget focuses as well on building critical health infrastructure, $7.8 billion in capital investments to support major construction projects like new and upgraded hospitals. And I'll have a bit more to say on this in a bit. So other supports that people rely on. There's a whole range of investments that we're making as well, because we need to continue to build out these supports, making sure that we have a well-funded education system, making sure that our children, our teachers, our schools, and our families, can count on an education system that prepares our young people for the future. You'll see here that we are bringing in free public transit for children 12 and under in time for classes in September. This really contributes to affordability for families in our community. A bus pass for a child for a year is $672 a year. That's a significant savings for families. It also makes sure that we're training the next generation of transit users, and that's good for the environment as well. The other thing I think that's important to acknowledge here is a universal childcare prototype program. We're doubling that. It's interesting, Christopher Freeland announced on Monday, that the federal government is finally at the table. I'm really thrilled to hear that. It's amazing. And she and I have had conversations over the last few months since I became finance minister, and really been urging her to get in the game. Glad that she has, looking forward to partnering with them. But it's not just a feminist issue or a women's issue, it's an economic issue. And we need to make sure that there's childcare to support growth in the economy. And the last item on the slide, of course, is affordable housing that I've been working diligently on for the last 4 years, and we're continuing with that program. But we also know that not everyone is affected by the pandemic in the same way. For people who are already experiencing economic and social barriers, the pandemic became an additional barrier for them. So in this budget, we're funding the largest permanent increase to income and disability assistance rates that ever. And as well, low-income seniors, for them, we've doubled the senior supplement rates, which is the first increase to these rates since 1987. Our government is also continuing to support people experiencing homelessness by providing more than 3,000 temporary shelters and hotel spaces for people experiencing homelessness. That includes meals and support staff and equipment needed to maintain safe shelters. These investments will continue to make progress towards meeting our poverty reduction goals of reducing the overall poverty rate by 25% and the child poverty rate by 50% by 2024. So I mentioned already a little bit about childcare. These are the specific details for it. We launched our program in 2018 to bring affordable, accessible, and quality childcare to families right across the province. Since then, we have funded the creation of over 26,000 new childcare spaces, with thousands more new spaces funded each year. Under our New Spaces Fund. And this budget continues to create even more spaces. The other thing that we're doing and is recognizing the workforce behind the workforce, and those are our early childhood educators. We are increasing their wages because we need to make sure that once we train them up, that they stay in the profession. We are also doubling the number of children who can get care for $10 a day or less through the Universal Child Care Prototype Program. This is a significant program, and I know that with the federal government now at the table, we can do so much more faster. We also have in this budget 400 new spaces for the Aboriginal Head Start program, providing culturally relevant childcare for Indigenous families. And of course, I'd mentioned the new childcare spaces through the New Spaces Fund. And affordable housing. We have certainly seen, given that most of you are likely still in your homes, many of you probably haven't left them much over the past year. We're seeing sort of how important our homes are. And with more people working from home, the demand for more space has increased activity. And low interest rates combined with the low inventory of homes, of course, has driven up the price. We do expect to see some moderation in the market in 2022 as the recovery takes hold, and that all orders of government continue our combined efforts to improve housing affordability. We have worked tirelessly since we formed government in 2017 to address housing affordability by addressing speculation, reducing rent increases, and we currently have a rent freeze currently in effect. And we're continuing our work towards meeting our goal of building out in partnership over 114,000 affordable homes over 10 years. To date, 26,000 homes have been completed or are underway. And in this budget, we continue to fund new and middle income housing units. We have with funding to nonprofit providers and $1.6 billion of provincial capital investment. And what I'm particularly excited about is the $2 billion in additional financing to expand the Housing Hub program. We have had significant interest in this program to build out homes for middle income families. And this is an exciting program that will deliver even more affordable housing for folks. That's about 9,000 new homes that we expect over the course of the next 3 to 5 years coming from this program. That's on top of the 1,000 homes that they've already produced. So one of the things that we certainly campaigned on since back in 2017 is affordability. It's one of the key measures that, key issues that I've been hearing from British Columbians since I've been a politician. And I just wanted to point out, the number of things that we have done as a government to address affordability. And this budget continues to drive that home. In budget 2021, we're focusing on investments that will ensure that no one is left behind, and that we continue to fight the pandemic and move into recovery, but we also continue to address affordability. So that includes, childcare, that's being expanded in this budget, and certainly, the other items that we have done earlier. The BC Child Opportunity Benefit, families started receiving this in October, but this year they're going to see the full benefit of that, and that's up to $1,600 per child, and that's going to make a significant difference, making sure that people have more money to spend in the economy going forward. Of course, the elimination of bridge tolls and student loans. We have more affordable car insurance now, thanks to the work of my colleague David Eby, but Mike Farnworth is getting all the kudos for it because he's now the minister, so that's just an ongoing joke. So the next time you see Mike Farnworth, you can tell him thank you for doing all the hard work that really David Eby did. These are and there are these additional measures: free transit for kids, and the PST exemption on e-bikes. This is going to, again, $7 million a year in savings for British Columbians. It's Earth Day today. Now's a good day to go out and buy an e-bike, and you won't pay PST on it. So this is what we're doing for business in this budget. We continue to provide measures to help businesses adapt and prepare and seize the opportunities for recovery. And we didn't wait to get support into the hands of businesses that need help. Budget 2021 builds on the supports we've continued to provide over this last year, moving as quickly as possible. This includes a stronger BC tax incentive for employers that have hired or increased compensation in the last quarter of 2020 compared to the previous quarter. We're seeing that come in, and many employers have increased their wages, hired more people, and in fact, are one of the good signs, the positive signs of our economy is that our employment numbers are higher today than they were pre-pandemic, which is a really good sign for us here in British Columbia. We've provided more funding for the Grow BC, Feed BC, and Buy BC strategies. We have PST exemption on select machinery and equipment to help businesses expand their operations. And of course, the ongoing funding for the small and medium-sized business grant recovery program that continues to roll in, and providing some grant support. And this is what these programs are what the business community said that would make a difference. And so we're taking lead from the business community. Our budget includes support also to the hardest hit sectors like tourism, like arts and hospitality. We have $120 million set aside through Budget 2021 to support tourism recovery starting this year, including support for major attractions, because British Columbia is a unique place. And when we're ready to open our doors to the world again, we want to be ready. We have additional funding for community destination development grants that will help communities prepare for future visitors through new tourism infrastructure like trails and airport improvements. And of course, we're supporting 14,000 restaurants, bars, breweries, wineries, gyms, and fitness centers through the most recent health restrictions through the Circuit Breaker Business Recovery Grant. And I speak with Minister Callan pretty much every day about what's going on and what more we might need to do for the business community. We have been nimble through the pandemic and creating new supports quickly as they're needed, and we continue to adjust our response as the landscape changes. If anything, this pandemic has really pushed all of us to be nimble, and we continue to invite your feedback so that we can continue to deliver to support business right around this province. And that's why we've built in significant pandemic and recovery contingencies into this budget so that we can continue to be nimble. And the Circuit Breaker Business Relief Grant is a perfect example of this. That program was developed in less than a week, which from a government perspective is like a lightning speed. And we'll continue to get help out quickly to those who need it, and continue to listen to what's going on in the business community so we continue to be responsive. In terms of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, this is an absolute priority for our government. We've made reconciliation with Indigenous peoples a cross-government priority. This budget includes stable funding to support engagement with Indigenous peoples on a range of matters, including land and resource activities, legislation, and policy. We're also providing more funding for Indigenous families for childcare spaces, as well as delivering skills training initiatives to help lead to long-term employment for unemployed and underemployed Indigenous people. And of course, investing in racism prevention and anti-racism activities. It has no place in this province, and delivery of services. And so we're paying particular attention to make sure that Indigenous people are recognized for the value and the contributions they make in our province. So our budget provides funding to implement the recommendations in the In Plain Sight report, as well as cultural safety and humility training across health and mental health addiction services. This is important work. The road to reconciliation is a long road. It's a relationship-based road, and relationships take time. But we also know that it's through reconciliation that we can get certainty on the land base. That's what investment community is looking for, and this is a key element to getting stronger investment here in British Columbia. We also recognize, and given that today's Earth Day, I think it's important, we have to make sure that we recognize that climate change is among us and that it's important that we address it. And we must make sure that a post-COVID future is greener and more sustainable one. Our Clean BC is our plan to build a cleaner and more sustainable future for us, for our children, and for our grandchildren, if I should ever be so lucky to have them. In Budget 21 includes an additional $506 million in new investments to continue to reduce emissions and create new opportunities and promote affordability. From our perspective, it's not, environment or economy. It's environment and economy. We can do this both. We are incredibly resilient, innovative, and creative. And I want to just say that with these new investments to Clean BC, our total funding for this plan is nearly $2.2 billion over the 5 years. So by keeping people healthy and investing in communities, we can move forward toward a strong economic recovery, and a recovery that includes everyone. Budget 2021 includes record levels of capital investment with $26.4 billion in funding over 3 years. And this is a $3.5 billion increase when you compare this budget to budget 2020. These investments support a strong and sustainable economy with investments in roads and transit and schools and housing and hospitals. We're building, in Cowichan, in Surrey, in Stewart Lake, Dawson Creek, and of course the replacement of St. Paul's Hospital. We're also investing in the future of BC through the BC Investment Fund. This fund will invest $500 million in high growth potential businesses here in British Columbia and leverage investments from the private and public sectors to help businesses grow. The fund will be instrumental in helping promising companies scale up. This was a big piece that we heard certainly in our last iteration of government, that they needed, that businesses needed this support. And so we're delivering that here in this budget. And it will support startups, anchor talent, and keep jobs and investment here in British Columbia, here in the Tri-Cities, in fact. So, and I want to say that, I've had the opportunity to watch the place that I call home grow quickly over the years. And as more families begin to call the Tri-Cities their home too, it's important to ensure that we have the infrastructure that meets the needs of our growing communities. We are building the homes that people need to stay in the community where they live, work, and learn. There are over 650 units of housing complete or underway in the Tri-Cities area with the help of our government. Just to give you a few examples, through the Community Housing Fund, we're supporting the development of 100 units of low to moderate income family housing on Emerson Street in Coquitlam. In Port Moody, we are helping develop 55 new affordable rental homes for people with low and moderate incomes in partnership with St. Andrew's United Church and the Catalyst Community Development Society. Work continues on expanding seat capacity at Dr. Charles Bass Secondary. Go Devils, go Blue Devils. École Westwood Elementary and École des Pionniers de Merdeville Elementary and Secondary. And part of building healthy communities is making sure that people have access to healthcare closer to home. And so construction is proceeding on the new emergency department at Eagle Ridge Hospital, making sure that there's care for people for them when they need it. And a new state-of-the-art Center for Mental Health and Addiction Treatment will provide vital care for people across the province. The Redfish Healing Center for Mental Health and Addictions Replacement project will provide 122 beds for an increase of 17 beds right on the Riverview lands. Simiqua Ella is the new name for the Riverview lands. Very excited to see this investment happening here. It will help people that require complex care needs with living with mental illness, substance use, social challenges. This is a good thing to have in our community. And of course, we're giving people more options to get around with the new bike parkades at several stations along the Evergreen line, which again, now that you can get your e-bikes, I can't wait for Mike to get his e-bike and see him trucking up and down the Ranch Park Hill. That'll be great. It will help expand our active transportation network as part of keeping people healthy and fit. So budget 2021, really just sort of speaks to, in many ways, what we have all been dealing with. Every one of us can recall, I think, in the last year when our life got turned upside down, whether it was when you learned the new words of, a safety bubble, your safe bubble, your safe six, or keep your 2 meters, or wearing masks. All of these things are things that we never, imagined we would be doing. But I have to say just how incredibly resilient I have witnessed British Columbians. I've witnessed businesses, coming together to collectively purchase plexiglass and reduce their costs in order to keep their business running, or pivoting, like Jason Zanata did at Novo Textiles, from making dog beds to making N95 masks. Pretty much, it seemed like overnight. So I have tremendous confidence in in us as British Columbians, in our business community, in our nonprofit sector, in our health sector, that we can do this. Our communities are strong and resilient. I'm proud to call Tri-Cities my home. I miss you all. I miss, the chamber events. I look forward to the day when we can all be on the golf course, fist pumping and can get on the dance floor at the next Tri-Cities Chamber Gala, because we are a fabulous community, and we care about each other, and we support one another. And I look forward to the future where we can continue to, meet each other, look back on this as a time when we did amazing things, and that we have a strong economic recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. We appreciate the comments. And yeah, an e-bike would be good. Save me walking up that hill all the time as I do, as you know. And yes, go Blue Devils. Two of my children went to that school. We have a ton of questions here. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A. I'll try to get through as many of them as I can. I do want to talk, we'll start out on the school issue. A lot of our members live up in the Burke Mountain area, and they own businesses locally. And I know there was an announcement made recently. The Premier was in town talking about the new schools up in Burke Mountain. And Finn Donnelly was there, and Finn's on the line. Is there funding in this budget for the new schools up on Burke Mountain? Because that's a growing community, as we know. We'll be talking to Mayor Stewart about it when he's in next week. And a lot of my members live up that way, and they're concerned about their growing families and where they're going to go to school. Is there any update on that for us?
Well, we have a significant, robust capital plan. I know that Finn Donnelly has been knocking at my door as soon as he was elected. I think it was, and we received, when I received my posting as finance minister. He's a great advocate. It was right at my door, reminding me about the growth on Burke and the need for schools. And I know that the new education minister, Jennifer Whiteside, is well aware of those pressures, because Finn has also been knocking on her door as well. So our capital plan is a robust plan, and I know that that Finn is doing his job as the advocate, and that the Minister of Education is also working with the school district in identifying how to best move forward on meeting the needs of Burke Mountain.
So it's not in this budget, but there's possibility still.
There's always possibility, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's one we need to move forward on fairly quickly. As you know, it's growing like crazy up there, and we've fallen behind. There's my 2 cents on that one. So I will, a few other questions here, quite a few. If you got them, put them in the Q&A section there, and I'll try to get through as many of them as I can. And I'll roll through, where are we here? I saw one from Bruce Gibson. One thing that's come up, and Bruce Gibson from Mill and Timber brought this up. He's talking about, they've got jobs up in Merritt, Little Wet in their mills up there. They got 37 jobs they can't find people for. And they're paying good wages, well over 60K a year up there. They can't find people. And it seems to be a theme down here too, around the community, that people are staying home on the federal programs and not necessarily going back to work, and they're having a problem finding people. Your thoughts on that? How do we get people off that and get them back working?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say that we are at higher employment rates now than we were pre-pandemic, which is certainly speaks to sort of what's going on. And I do know that the federal government, I talked to Krista Freeland, who has said that they are going to start rolling back some of those supports, recognizing that as we move through the vaccination program, that we need to make sure that first and foremost that everyone is safe and that we can get back to work. The other thing that we're doing, because even before the pandemic, Mike, we were hearing that we need skilled labor, that we had the shortage before the pandemic, and that's why in this budget we're investing heavily in training young people, giving them the skills so that they can pivot, they could retrain. We know through this pandemic that it is young people that have been hardest hit because the tourism industry, the service sector, the high touch sectors have been most impacted by the pandemic. So through this budget, we are creating a number of skills opportunities, 30 micro-credentialing courses, co-op opportunities, getting young people, students and young people, short-term training to pivot so that they can launch into, making, a decent living. And I will certainly let folks know that, up in Merritt, where there is some work up there, that they should head on over and get a decent job that pays a good wage and that has, I am sure, more affordable housing as well.
It does. Well, so let's transition to the housing issue. And as you know, the housing market is just going crazy, especially here in the Lower Mainland. And I'm hearing from a lot of our younger members, including my son, that they're very concerned they won't be able to get into the market anytime in the near future. We'll have to move out of the province to get housing. And we've got the we've got the speculation tax, the foreign buyer tax, the vacancy tax, all that stuff. Really hasn't seemed to put a stop on it. It just keeps going up and up. And a new stress test coming in probably won't change much. What things do you foresee doing, actionable plans to help the housing market here in BC to make it more attainable for people, especially the younger generation as they move into that time of their life?
Yeah, I'm hearing it too, Mike, from my son as well, and it's absolutely challenging. And I think it's important to sort of recognize that we were making having some impact on affordability prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic, which none of us could have predicted, we couldn't have predicted that how long we would have to live and work and do everything from our homes. And I know that having years and years and years of the only thing coming on the market were 600 square foot, 700 square foot condos. And if you knew that you were going to have to spend 22 hours a day in your condo doing work and everything from this small, what we consider a small space, I don't think we would have, appreciated what we've lived through this last year. And so it's putting considerable stress on single-family housing as a result. But we were making difference. The speculation tax is making a difference. It brought 18,000 homes to the market available in terms of the pressures that were on rental housing. What we're seeing is a combination of things coming all to a head. People needing and recognizing that they need larger spaces in order to continue doing the work from home situation, and appreciating having more space. But we're also seeing incredibly low interest rates, in terms of making mortgage accessible to more people. We're also seeing considerable savings. That's the other interesting thing that we're seeing when we talk to economists, that they're saying that a lot of British Columbians have tremendous savings, which is also meaning that they can participate in the market. And then of course the stress test. And knowing that the stress test is going to change, that those rules are changing June 1st, is creating pressure for people to move quickly before the stress test changes. So that is a bit of a pressure point. We're monitoring it closely in order to take a look to see what it is that we need to do. I check in regularly with Minister Freeland to talk about what's happening here on the West Coast, because there are some things that the federal government has tools that they have available to them. And this is why we've also put in the $2 billion of financing to the Housing Hub, so that we can get more affordability built into housing, so that people can participate more readily in the housing market.
Okay, cool. And I'll say on the stress test, one of my members here is he's not really a fan of it because it only affects non-insured mortgages and decreases borrowing affordability by less than 5%, something they say easily can be offset by increasing the amortization on a mortgage. And he's a mortgage professional, so he knows what he speaks. So we'll be curious to see how it works out, and if it has any effect. If not, I hope we can pivot onto something else. But in pivoting on that,
well, can I just add one more thing, Michael?
Please do.
Yeah, I think what's also really important is, we need to get more of the right product out in communities, a number of years ago we brought in a housing needs assessment, and requirement for local governments, because local governments have been operating, their land use planning decisions in a vacuum without any data, real numbers about what their housing stock is, what their current stock is, and what they're going to need as they plan for the future. So it's not what I'll call a sexy piece of legislation. It's not a shiny piece to point to, but it's a critical piece, and it's a requirement that all local governments have to develop it. They have to publish it. They have to let the community know, let the development community know what it is, so that they can respond accordingly. And they have to update it every 5 years, so that we as a province can also see the 162 municipalities. We can see what they're building, what their needs are, so that we can all make sure that we're getting the right housing for British Columbians, because that's been a really a missing piece in our ability to be responsive to the needs of British Columbians. And so I'm really looking forward to local governments, delivering that, and then seeing the development community respond to that accordingly.
No, I kind of segues into my next question. It's like you read my mind, because we do need more inventory. We need more of the right inventory, and land is scarce. So if we're going to continue to build up, we need more 3-bedroom facilities for families and stuff that families can grow up and grow with. But to get there in the development community, is there a way we can expedite the development approvals interface with municipalities? Because I keep hearing that, they just sit there, and then every month it's costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars, which just gets carried on, just passed on to the consumer at the end of the day.
I agree.
Is there what can we do? And I'm going to be asking Mayor Stewart this question. We're going to be asking all our municipalities this question. What can we do to speed up the process to get approvals, or we want certainty? Development wants certainty. What can we do to help? What can the provincial government do?
I agree with you completely. This has been a missing piece. And I know because I had the file before, the finance file, and I've been certainly having ongoing conversations with Josie Osborne, who's the current minister responsible for municipal affairs. This is very much I'll call it a hot file for her in terms of moving on that. We need to address the development approval process. Local governments have many tools at their disposal, and I'll just point out, in Langford, you can get like a building permit within like 3 or 4 months. So we know that it's possible, that there are choices that local governments can make, and they need to use those tools. But I also know that Josie's working with local governments and identifying how to do parallel processes for those communities that have linear processes, but maybe they don't need to be linear, that you can double up so that your project goes through 2 or 3 layers simultaneously, and also fast tracking certain proposals. There's nothing wrong with saying this is what our needs are, so we're going to fast track, and that's what this the $2 billion, the Housing Hub investment, the $2 billion of investment funding part of the deal is getting it fast tracked, getting these projects fast tracked so that they could so that the province is coming with financing, construction financing, needs to move fast through that system. That money comes back when the developer takes out mortgage financing, and then that money just gets put back into the development process so that we can continue to deliver on the housing that is desperately needed, particularly in the Lower Mainland, but also in South Island. Here in Victoria, we're seeing significant challenges. We're seeing it, in Kelowna, in Prince George now, considerable pressure in the housing market. So we have to do this all over the province.
Yeah, it's a big part of the puzzle. We're going to keep pushing on at the municipal level and pushing you at the provincial level to do it too. There's lots of questions here. Real quick one, e-bikes. Mike Lee is asking, is there any appetite for expanding the PST exemption to scooters, electric unicycles, etc.? Other electric
unicycles. I want to see you, Michael, on an electric unicycle.
And pigs will fly first. No, not going to happen. Any appetite for expanding it beyond if scooters get approved in Vancouver? I know they're working on a plan there.
Well, at this point, I want to see, we want to see the uptake on e-bikes, and I want to actually say what's fascinating, and I think we should be proud as British Columbians. Electric vehicles, I think 54,000 of them, I think, has been the uptake, and in this budget we have some more rebate support for purchase of EVs, but we have the greatest uptake of any jurisdiction in North America. in North America on electric vehicles. So we're continuing to invest in electric charging stations and such, making sure that that there's a strong appetite, that there's support for that to get us off of fossil fuels. It's absolutely critical.
There's lots of questions about homelessness. As you know, that's a big issue here in the Tri-Cities with 3030 Gordon. So I'm going to try to ask you about 2 or 3 questions, but wrap a bunch of them together. There's a question about the Sure Stay Hotel on Burnett Avenue. What's the outlook on this? Is it permanent? Is there an off-ramp strategy on the private hotels homelessness, or will it expand? Polly Carrere is asking about, although the funding for additional affordable housing and housing from complex issues is very important for our communities as a whole. Can you speak to the funds for supportive housing with wraparound services so that the homeless population can take necessary steps to get their lives to a point where moving into affordable housing is a realistic option? And another member asked about why not using Riverview in the meantime. Why doesn't government open up good quality housing on the Riverview lands while things are getting going? So there's a lot, there's 4 questions in one there, all around the homelessness and affordable housing issue.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody for their keen interest. It's a critical issue, and it's one that got me into politics in the first place, back when the cold weather map program was being proposed back in 2007. So it's an issue that is very very important to me. It's very important to our government, which is why we've been putting in billions of dollars into the housing. Into supportive housing and into the sort of the whole spectrum of housing, because once people have have supportive housing and they're stabilized, they need to be able to move into other subsidized housing. But because we're coming off of a couple of decades where neither the federal nor the provincial government was building housing, we are very much playing catch up, and so thousands of units of all kinds of housing are coming to fruition. We're continuing to build out the supportive housing that is desperately needed in communities around the province. I would love to see local governments in the Tri-Cities join with us. It hasn't happened yet. It makes me incredibly sad, because we're doing it in Chilliwack and in Abbotsford and in Vernon and in Kamloops. 3 and 4 and 5 of these kinds of projects, but we haven't been able to deliver this here in the Tri-Cities, and we absolutely need local government walking with us hand in hand to make this happen. I'll speak to Riverview in particular, Simiqua Ella. In particular, we're working closely with Kwikwetlem First Nation. I wanted to invite everybody to participate in the feedback, the community feedback that we're asking about what needs to go in there. Certainly housing for those who are incredibly vulnerable and dealing with multiple challenges is there. We have put aside some funding for complex care, to develop that kind of housing. That is in the works. So we hope to have something soon on that. And one of the reasons why Riverview isn't top of the list to do a whole bunch of housing is partly because we are working with Kwikwetlem First Nation, and to identify how to best use those lands, and so we need to work with them, and that relationship is forging ahead, which is great, and it's exciting. So there's opportunities to do that there. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that we're continuing to support people. And Riverview is very isolated as a space. The 244 acres there. There's no place to walk. To get groceries, to go to the doctor, to get to a pharmacy. It's not ideal. What we have found with supportive housing, those who are living rough, who then have to move into housing, they need to be able to walk to places because they don't have vehicles. Transit isn't sufficient in Riverview for them. It's not a recommended location for that very reason. And in terms of walking, it needs to be flat. Because even Michael, as he's coming up Branch Park, walking a hill is not easy to do, and if your health is frail, it's that much more difficult. So these are the kinds of things that we look at, that BC Housing looks at when they're trying to make the best determination about what works best. So when I take a look at Kamloops, I take a look at Prince George, we take a look at Chilliwack, we take a look at Abbotsford, we take a look at Burnaby, and where we're doing these investments, they're all places where there's a bit more of an urban environment where there's commercial activity happening, so they can get groceries, they can go to their doctor very easily, and that's really important. And I'm hopeful that we'll find a way to deliver more of that in the Tri-Cities.
Okay, so you're not implying that my health isn't good because I
No,
can't
your
walk
health is
uphill.
awesome. Your health
Thank
is
you.
awesome. It's, but
So
but
let me
I
ask you,
have seen you huff and puff up the hill though, Mike.
it's because I've been walking on flat too much and the golf courses I'm playing are flat. But the cities, what can they do? What do the local cities need to do to help this problem? We have 3030 Gordon. We know there's issues there with the local business community. You just said the cities need to step up. What do we need from them? What do you need from them?
Well, what we need is for them to say, okay, we'll join you in, we've identified some land that we could do this on. That's all we need. We have some land over here where we can, house 50 people who are homeless in our community. That's all we need. And I invite them to reach out to us. They can reach out to the Homelessness and Housing Task Group. They can reach out to David Eby. I know that he's been talking, he's the new Minister of Housing. He's been talking to and reaching out to our mayors and council. I know that he's written letters, and that's really what we need is, we want to work with you. We've got some land over here. Let's get it done.
Is a sure stay is that a permanent thing or is that just a temporary stopgap?
Right now, it's a stopgap. We're looking for permanent. I mean, I want permanent. I know that the Tri-Cities Homelessness and Housing Task Group has been working diligently, advocating, trying to, drive folks to us as well, BC Housing, making sure that people are safe, that making sure that communities are safe, and really driving home to the local governments that we need partnership. And that's the missing piece in this puzzle is we need local government. And this is one of the challenges I would suggest just around the Tri-Cities. Everyone gets to say, no, it's the other guy. And that's, I just don't think that's acceptable. I think and I think about, well, wouldn't it be great if each of the 3 cities said, yes, we could do it here. And we get 3 projects done. Because it's, when I first became a politician, trying to address homelessness, my frustration was the Liberal government wasn't doing anything. And now we have a new Democrat government saying we're doing something. And now we don't have a local government in my community that's saying, we'll join with you. And in my perfect world, each of the communities will say, let's do it here and we can get it done.
Okay. We're up against the clock here. So I got a couple real quick ones. First off, years ago, the transportation minister talked about the one bottleneck we've got, the Brunette interchange, that they were looking at that. Is there anything in the budget or in the infrastructure projects coming up to fix the Brunette interchange because it's the main access to Royal Columbian Hospital?
It's there. There's money there. I just actually had a meeting last week with the new Minister of Transportation, Rob Fleming, and work proceeds. The big challenge with that bottleneck is the conversation between the 2 cities, between New Westminster and Coquitlam, and coming up with a plan that works for both communities. But I know that the new minister is on top of it because he came to my office, mask in hand, and having a conversation, him on like the far side and me on the other side. And I've been really clear as the MLA responsible for that area and driving home the point, absolutely, that's our hospital. And we need access to that hospital. That's also for Millardville, that's our transit station.
Yeah.
So, taking a bus and getting stuck in there and not being able to get to transit's also a problem. So I've certainly driven home to him about how important this is to my community.
Okay, and we will drive that to him too. We got time for one last question.
Okay, but make it quick.
This won't be a quick one, but I'm going to ask you anyways. And it's one thing I preach to the federal government too is I know we're in a pandemic. I know there's issues about we have to spend money. But I think we can't take our eye off the ball about long-term bringing down the debt, the deficit, so we don't pass it along to our children. So I know government's traditionally looking at like a 4-year window ahead, but I think we need to be conscious of as things improve, how do we get the deficit down so that we get our finances under control for future generations.
So
that's my comment, and I'll leave it to you to.
Well, let me close out with that because I do think responsible fiscal planning is taking a look at what the needs are today and keeping an eye on the future. So it's not an either or, it's a both and this budget does that. We're paying attention to what our needs are today and keeping an eye on the future. I'm incredibly hopeful given our resilience, given what we're seeing in terms of fiscal indicators about where we're going in our economy, the potential substantial growth. We've just seen part of the Economic Forecast Council that I consult with has just upped their expected growth projections to 5.8%. They were lower just 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago. And so what that tells me is that we're in this period of flux, and there's a lot of assumptions that go into fiscal planning. And so because we're in this period of flux, the assumptions change. And so it's for that reason that we haven't come out with a hard and fast plan, because our assumptions are based on so many changing factors, they wouldn't be accurate. And so it's within that frame that we have built a budget that says, this is where we're going to be spending money, because it's important to make sure we're investing in our children, that we're investing in our health, that we're supporting businesses today so that they can be ready for a full recovery tomorrow, whenever that tomorrow happens. Now, the other thing that we have to do, of course, is build in some contingencies. And that's what we've done. There's significant contingencies in this budget so that we can continue to be flexible. We continue to adapt. As this virus adapts, we can respond to it. But the other thing we've done is we have $1 billion in forecast allowance built into this budget. So, if depending on how quickly recovery happens. So we've built in lots of flexibility. I'm hopeful that we won't need all of those contingencies or the forecast allowance, and that by next year, by budget 2022, we'll be able to plan a predictable and steady, plan for reducing our deficit. And I want to point out, in this 3-year plan, you do see reducing deficits over the 3 years because we've built it out that way to make sure that we are trending in the right direction.
Okay. Yeah, I did see the way you budgeted. I saw there's some buffers in there, and there's lots of, I like the way that looked. I guess if we do end up coming out on the good end of some of those things, that we put some of the money towards paying the debt and not necessarily having to spend it. And I know there's pressures on either side. I get it. But that's just my pitch for that. Listen, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. We love it when you come back home and come visit us more and more. And if we can help you out at all, let us know, and we will bring to your attention any topics that come forward. We know small businesses are hurting. We appreciate how quickly you're able to pivot and give them some support, but they're still hurting, and hopefully we can continue those supports and get out of this and become a stronger community and a stronger province for it.
Thanks, Mike. And I just want to say that you're my first chamber that I'm doing as my post-budget tour, and because you're my chamber.
Thank you. Have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine in Victoria. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.